If we were to really pay attention to how we, as a human species, how we organize our governments, how we organize our lives, how we organize our institutions, such as our colleges and universities, or our local municipalities, our local governments, our things like our police forces, our fire stations, our churches, and other community centers, if we really look at the reason as to why we have those things and why we organize them in such a way, it really comes down to this. It comes down to the prevention of human suffering. We have governments, we have institutions, we have universities, because within those institutions, within those communities, there is a deep and incredible potential to alleviate the problem of human suffering. Now, the Methodist Church, a nonprofit organization, and specifically the Texas Annual Conference of the Methodist Church, which compromises all Methodist churches within the East Texas, the Southeast Texas, and the Brazos Valley region, is very well aware of the problem of human suffering, and specifically the problem of suffering amongst children. So because of that, they started a new initiative, a new movement called Love All God's Children that took place in 2016. It's a 6-year initiative, and today we're going to talk a little bit about that in the presentation. Let them hear our yes, or a United Methodist vaccine to a global virus. So, what allows a child to suffer? It has once been said, I believe, that if it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to abuse a child. It takes a village to harm a child's life going into the future. What are the two things that in a lot of our communities in the eastern part of Texas are harming our children? Poverty and an increasing crime rate that eventually leads many of these children to become incarcerated at some point in their lives. And the parents of these two things are illiteracy and hunger. Now, there are currently 45 million adults in America who suffer from illiteracy, and some even scarier statistics for you. 3 out of 5 inmates cannot read above a 4th grade level, and 3 out of 4 people who are on welfare cannot read above a 4th grade level. There are 65 million children right now, 4th graders, who cannot even read at their grade level. And according to cross-cultural peer-reviewed studies, the best way to eradicate poverty in future generations is simple. Let everyone read by their grade level by the 3rd grade. So that's one part of it, is illiteracy. That's breeding this culture of poverty and incarceration. But then the second part is also child hunger. Now, it's easy to think to ourselves, well, we have all these food banks and these food pantries, and we have community centers, and we have the school districts that are providing lunch and other meals to the children. But the truth is, that's not doing enough, because on weekends and in the summer months, many students still go hungry. And the two of these things combined, illiteracy and hunger, are creating this two-headed monster, right? These are the parents, and they're creating the two-headed monster that is poverty and a high rate of incarceration of young people. Now, the good news is that the Methodist Church is well aware of these problems. They understand the fact that as a church, as a organization that is a nonprofit and that really works for the well-being of their communities, that they have a big role to play in stepping up to these issues. And with new leadership coming from Scott Jones, the new bishop of the Methodist Church, came in 2016. Of course, I'm a Methodist, so I know that. So soon after his appointment, he began the Love All God's Children initiative. And the idea of the Love All God's Children initiative is simple. We are empowering our churches, the 400 churches that encompass the conference, empowering the parishioners that live within those communities to reach out to children within their neighborhoods, to bring them into the church doors and provide them things like food, after-school programs, guidance counseling, a community to kind of stay and be a part of, and also, probably most importantly, we're doing new literacy programs, so hooking kids up with a mentor to make sure that they're coming along with their reading. Now, what is this? Why would we do this? What's this all about? It's about bringing real justice to our communities. Think about Martin Luther King in his I Have a Dream speech. What Martin Luther King did in that speech was this: he just challenged us to envision a world where justice is the way, where people are treated with justice, where compassion is extended, regardless of any sort of ethnic or racial boundaries. That's a big part of our communities too, is that we live in very diverse communities, even in a place like East Texas. And our churches are diverse. So the Methodist Church is, I think, a church that is characterized by justice, whether that be from our willingness to stay united despite the issue of slavery in the 1800s. It could be seen in our involvement in the civil rights movement, in our ordination of women as clergy, and also even though we're in a bit of a dispute with LGBTQIA persons and their inclusion in the church, we are still having a conversation, which is a lot farther than a lot of Christian denominations are going. So we are a people of justice. And with this justice comes this. Because we are a people of justice, we can be a people who let a culture who maybe views Christianity as such as a kind of a no sort of belief system, no to this, no to that, restrict yourself, life taking away. But we're not that. We're a yes people. We are a yes to the liberation of the poor. We are a yes to making our communities better. We are a yes to redeemed and restored lives. We are a major yes to the dignity and value of all human beings. So that's really what this is all about. This is about helping people hear our yes, and it all comes from a common understanding. There's maybe not much that we agree about right now in a polarized America, but there's one thing that we can agree about, and that is the fact that the suffering of children is wrong. Imagine this. Imagine that we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic right now, but there's something different. This time, instead of it coming for the elderly or those of us who are immunocompromised, it comes from our children. How much different would the pandemic look if it came for kids? Well, it looked a lot different. So we need to rally around that common spirit of trying to help our children, trying to help the youngest among us, and try to love those people so that we can provide flourishing for them right now and going into the future. Thanks.